6 years ago today, December 21st, 2003, the Bush administration's Homeland Security Department scared the bejesus out of the entire country.
America is on high alert tonight. Just 4 days before Christmas, the Secretary of Homeland Security, Tom Ridge, announced that the government has raised the terror threat level from yellow, or elevated, to orange, which is high.
And to make sure that the American people didn't miss the message, in case the color orange was insufficiently frightening, Homeland Security Secretary Tom Ridge upped the tension by evoking the specter of the worst terrorist attack on American soil, saying, quote, strategic indicators are perhaps now greater than at any point since September 11th, 2001. So what were those strategic indicators that caused the grounding of flights, the presence of police and heavy assault gear on New York City streets, the dispatching of scientists to monitor radiation levels in major cities?
The U.S. intelligence community has received a substantial increase in the volume of threat-related intelligence reports. These credible sources suggest the possibility of attacks against the homeland around the holiday season and beyond.
You know, I know how this story ends up, and I know that was a long time ago, 6 years ago today, but even watching this footage now, I feel a little scared watching it. Who were these so-called credible sources, though, that brought up this reaction from the government? Turns out it was one source who, as it turns out, may have been sort of a con man. It's a man named Dennis Montgomery, chief technology officer of a software company who, according to my next guest's reporting, managed to convince the CIA that he could detect magic barcoded messages from al-Qaeda hidden inside broadcast signals from Al Jazeera. Mr. Montgomery reportedly claimed that he alone could not only read those signals, but translate them. And he could translate them into latitudes, longitudes, and flight numbers, supposedly of the planes and targets that al-Qaeda would use to strike again, all buried inside Al Jazeera's transmissions. If you think this idea sounds a little far-fetched, the CIA didn't at first. But eventually they got suspicious. With the help of French intelligence officials, they reportedly hired another company to check this guy's work, essentially to try to recreate what it was that he said that he was doing and to find the things he said he was translating. They discovered that those magic barcodes were never there in the first place. Joining us now is the journalist who has pieced together this amazing story. It's published in, of all places, this month's Playboy magazine. He's Aram Roston. Aram, thanks very much for being here.
Thank you, Rachel.
I should also mention that you are also author of The Man Who Pushed America to War, about Ahmed Chalabi. I want to qualify my conclusion that this guy seems like a con man, because you don't report that. What you report is that this was a really weird contract for the United States government to have taken on. What made, what exactly did he convince the CIA that he could do?
He, in essence, convinced them he had this magic technology that could predict terrorist attacks. And there always was an urgent threat he was finding and rushing it to the CIA. There was an imperative to act. That was what he was always convincing the CIA. And it was a special group within the CIA that he convinced. It was a very small number of people that actually knew who he was, and it was a slightly larger group of people who knew what this intelligence even was. At first, they didn't want to reveal this sort of bizarre source of all this idea that it was somehow secretly encoded in Al Jazeera, because in reality, the people who knew the most, they didn't believe it. People who knew the most knew it couldn't work.
So obviously this information that he was predicting made it all the way to the top, because we did get that nationwide terror alert 6 years ago today. But are the people who made the decision to act in such a massive and expensive and fear-inducing way on behalf of the country, did they not know what his methods were? Because even the basic description of his method sounds like Harry Potter.
Yes, no, they didn't know. He apparently refused to reveal exactly how he was finding it. That was proprietary, secret information for him.
Which gets to the larger issue about contractors doing basic fundamental government work. If it is proprietary technology, if it's secret so that people can protect the grounds on which they get their contract and make their money, then nobody can check their work, right?
Exactly. It gets the idea of, like, if you keep a secret small enough, you can never actually confirm whether the intelligence is true or false. And that's what happened. This classification meant nobody ever knew. Nobody knew what the source was, so nobody could act to say, this makes no sense, folks. years.
Well, the terror alert that was 6 years ago today, it lasted until the middle of January. Do we know what made Homeland Security finally decide that there wasn't a credible threat anymore?
Back then, they finally, first of all, remember, it's all still classified. These people technically can't talk about it. Even if they all know it was false intelligence, they're still not allowed to talk about it technically because it's still technically classified. But it was finally deemed non-credible by the CIA. Wiser heads prevailed.
Now, one of the things that you report, which is sort of the kicker in this entire story, is that this same guy and his magical terrorism predicting software, which may or may not exist, has another government contract right now, has been taken on by another part of the U.S. government. How did you find that out, and what do we know about that contract?
It's not right now, but it was this year. It was in 2009. What happened is, first he goes through financiers, too. He had one financier, Warren Trepp, and Warren Trepp used to be an associate of Michael Milken, the famous junk bond king. Then he became an associate of this fellow and his financier. Then there was a woman named Idra Blixeth, who was a prominent a socialite, an investor. She's married to a famous billionaire, Tim Blixeth. She became his financier. The most recent company, it got a contract in 2009, January 2009, for $3 million from the U.S. Air Force. And there is evidence that the people knew, that the Air Force knew that the CIA had deemed this guy not credible. There is evidence.
But the contract is over.
It is. They did get money, though.
Wow. Aram Roston, contributor to Playboy magazine, author of The Man Who Pushed America to War, has reported on the incredible magic Al Jazeera barcode scam of the war on terror. This is fascinating reporting. Thanks for joining us. It's good to meet you.
You
Appreciate it.